Hello and welcome everyone to February's edition of CloudBytes. This month we are focusing on the first release of the year, highlights and whatnot. Today our speaker will be Massey, Software Services Director at Dean Dorton. This is going to be recorded and will be emailed to all attendees afterwards. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We encourage and welcome all questions. So without further ado, I give you Philip Massey.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate that kind introduction. Oops, clicked too quick. Okay, so as Julia said, welcome everyone. I really appreciate you guys being here, taking time out of your day, seeing so many people register and attend these presentations. Does my heart good, and I hope that I can do justice to these new features. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm probably more excited about some of the little things in this release that are clearing up some nagging. I just wish it could. I just would like for it to type of thing. So I'm excited to be able to show this to you today, as excited as someone really should be to talk about accounting software. So anyway, today, release 1 of 2022, we're going to go through the highlights. We have 50 slides to get through. So we're going to cover some of these pretty quick. So let's jump in. First of all, just as a reminder, here again is the release schedule. So we're talking about the release that came out February 18th, which was this past weekend, just after Valentine's Day. You know, something where we had a lot of love going on, and hopefully carrying that over into the things that are in this new release. Now, one thing to remind you of again, if you all would like, there is an option for what's called a preview company. A preview company is an exact replica of your company database, just with the -PRV at the end. And it will be granted to you approximately 2, maybe 3 weeks before the release itself is out. And it will have all the new functions in the new release. So it will be your chance to test these new features. It's quite honestly your chance to have a little sandbox for a little while, to play in, to try things, to do what you want to do in that preview company. So there's absolutely positively no reason that you guys should not sign up for a preview company. If you haven't already, I don't want to make you feel bad, but shame on you for not taking advantage of this free service. Please contact Kim Denton, K Denton at ddaftech.com. She is your go-to resource for everything Sage Intacct, and she'll be more than happy to help you set up this preview process. There's no cost to you, and there's very little effort from you to be able to get this going. So I highly encourage everyone to take advantage of the preview company possibilities. All right, so lots of new, like I said, lots of new little enhancements in this release, things that are going to make stuff convenient for you, things that you might have said, gosh golly, why doesn't it do this? Now you'll be able to say, gosh golly, I'm sure glad it does this, right? So let's jump in. First place you're going to see a lot of these things is accounts payable. And that in and of itself is fantastic, because everybody, like it or not, has bills that you have to pay. What a wonderful world it would be if we didn't, but of course that will never happen. Okay. So AP bill list view, here's a small one. Here's a small one, but still a good one. There's now out of the box a draft AP bill view. So if you are in the habit of putting bills in draft, and I know we've got some customers that do either via integration or they're manually putting them in there, and they want to be able to check them and make sure that those bills are correct before they post them. There's now a draft bills view out of the box, pulls all those draft bills in there for you, narrows that list down so you don't have to go hunting or searching or creating your own filters for those. So little thing, but I think that's pretty cool. They have redesigned the AP bill screen a little bit, and I would love to call your attention to, let me see if I can get this little pin going here, to this right up here. And I'm going to circle it a couple of times so that you guys can be sure to see it. That is bill number 1234. If we were standing in the same room, I'd ask you to raise your hand if you've ever scrolled down into an accounts payable bill or something like that, got down into the weeds of the entries and so forth, and then said, wait, which bill number am I looking at? And you got to go back up and look for it. Now, up in the header, much more recognizable, much easier to see in the process of entering transactions in. So absolutely love the fact that they moved that up there. And then they've changed a few other fields as well. Just put them in different places, perhaps made them a little bit more pronounced. So a little bit of redesign on that screen. I think personally, that's a lot of really good changes there. Redesigned also the bill details table. There's a new history tab. It's got bill approval information and created and modified information. So fantastic that you can drop this information down there or see this information down there on the screen, for example, readily available with the actual AP bill itself. So you've got all that information there at your fingertips, and they're really pulling everything together on the AP side so you don't have to search and hunt and peck for the information. So we've got a pay bills in the pay bills grid, they have added a bill date down at the bottom. So you can now sort by the bill date. You can filter by the bill date. So, additional choices there. So if you want to use the filters up at the top, you can absolutely do those. But then you can also take advantage just straight in that screen of that new bill date column to be able to be more selective with the bills that you pay. Okay. So again, a couple of just small changes there that I think could have a big impact on efficiency. Manual payments. Manual payments is now part of the future period warning process. So in other words, if you are configured with the accounts payable, as you can see there on the right-hand side of that screen, if you're posting in a future period to warn you, previously manual payments did not participate in that exercise. So you could key in a manual payment, you could miskey, let's say next year, maybe you miskey and put in 2032. Intacct would have taken it and there would have been no warning about that 2032. Now, however, as we roll into 2032 with this, it will also participate in that warning process. Okay. Based on your configuration, of course. And I apologize, that says GL configuration right there. That should say AP configuration. So we'll get that slight issue fixed before we send the slide deck out. Check sorting, a new option for how you want to sort your checks. Payment request creation order. New sort option is available in print checks and allows time savings with matching bills and checks. So you've got a few more options there on the ability to sort by. So you can see the payment request created at right down here. Oops. Trying to get my pen working again, right down here. So you've got an ability in here to have some more sorting options within your print checks process. Again, something aimed at making you more efficient in the overall AP process. Now, something aimed at making you a little bit more secure in the overall AP process. There is a new permission available. So this is absolutely something that you should be aware of, and it is something that you would need to set in the security in your environment. We have now, sorry, I thought I had turned that pen on. I'm not very good with the pen and WebEx, I apologize. We now have an unmask bank details checkbox. So you can control, as you can see down at the bottom of the screen here, whether someone sees a masked number or the full number for a vendor's account. So a little added bit of permissions there that gives you an ability to greater control who can see all the information that's in the system and who cannot. Now, this one I am really, really excited about long term. And we're going to talk a little long term here. We're going to talk a little current term. Spend a couple of minutes on this slide because I want to make sure that you all understand what's here and what's coming. Okay. So there's two separate components on this screen. You've got the AP bill automation here, and you've got the electronic payments here. And we're kind of divided in the middle here. Now, with this, the AP bill automation is in an early adopter stage. So that means, and we'll talk more about early adopter towards the end of the presentation because there's a few more things that are in an early adopter stage. But you could read this as a select beta stage process. So what the early adopter program is they're trying to get select customers, and it's not, biggest or anything like that. It's based on customers who volunteer, who would like to be a part of the process, and who demonstrate a need for the solution. So if by chance you are one of those customers that doesn't have AP bill automation needs, then it really wouldn't behoove you to volunteer for this because you wouldn't be the best fit. But let's say you've struggled with your AP processes, you've looked at the bill.coms, the mineral trees, the used solutions, things like that, and they didn't really fit what you were looking for, or maybe you have one of those, but it's not working great for you, or you just want to look at this alternative and see what it might entail, please reach out to me, to Kim Denton, to anyone on the team, and just say, I heard something about this AP bill automation that's an early adopter process, and we might want to take a look at it. So the left-hand side, the AP bill automation is being built into Intacct core functionality type processes to allow you to receive emails and scan bills in manually, and then begin that process of reviewing the bills, coding the bills, approving the bills, etc., much like right now third-party systems handle for the most part. So this is really exciting that Intacct is beginning to build this now into their solution. And those who do jump into the early adopter program and are in it will have some say-so, obviously, in how all of that works and what kinds of functionality are included with it and things like that. So exciting to me to be able to be in that process. On the right-hand side, we are now in general availability for the electronic payments process. So you may have heard vendor payments powered by CSI. That's what we're talking about. That has made its way through early adopter, and is now in general availability, which means that natively within the Intacct application, you can set up bills for payment. Intacct will handle the payment of those bills. It is powered again by the CSI solution. And you will be able to set payments up to go out, either cut checks with it, which CSI will do that, or they'll make electronic payments or things of that nature. So it's really a great add-on for Intacct, and that is now in general availability. So if you're interested in it, if you have questions about what additional costs there may be for it, then please reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to run through that with you. So again, I am extremely excited about this whole slide. I think that it brings a lot of functionality to Sage Intacct that other applications do not have. And I think that it's a great thing for our customer base, prospect base to take a look at and potentially bring into their environment. All right, so that wraps up accounts payable, kind of. Let's go over to cash management, which of course, you pay your bills via cash management, banking type transactions. Right? It's in accounts payable, but they're banking type transactions, so you're cutting checks. I say that because the big thing we want to talk about here is the vendor payments powered by CSI. So it is an electronic service allowing you to pay vendors directly from within Sage Intacct. This is not ACH. This is not check printing. It is electronic payments through Sage Intacct, powered via the CSI organization and platform. They will take care of making the actual payment, but everything is recorded and initiated inside of Sage Intacct. You can do ACH, you can do check delivery, and they do have virtual credit cards. I do want to point out that there is no additional cost to enroll and use vendor payments powered by CSI. No additional cost to enroll and use vendor payments powered by CSI. So reach out to us. Right now, it is only for US vendors accepting US dollars, but reach out to us. There will be some costs involved potentially with this to get it implemented within your environment, but we'll give you all that information up front. This, in my opinion, is a great service, again. So Sage Intacct, you transact in Sage Intacct instead of setting the vendor up as an ACH pay or a check printing pay. You set them up as a CSI pay, which is Corporate Spending Innovations. That's what CSI stands for. They match their vendor within their internal system. If it does match, then they are enrolled in the virtual card service, which is a nice way to pay organizations. If there is no match, then they will reach out to the vendor, attempt to enroll them in the service. They do not have to. If they do not, then they can be paid via ACH or check delivery. But if they do accept the virtual card, then they will be paid via virtual cards. Okay. Here's some help articles to assist in getting you started. When you get this PowerPoint slide, it will be hyperlinked here. So you can click on these things, read up some more about it, see if this is actually what you want to do. Here's some example CSI letters. And we are more than happy to help you get this set up within your environment. Just reach out to us. Again, I think it's a great thing. You're offloading payment processing over to Corporate Spending Innovations, which you can read the studies, you can read the information that's on the web, but the cost of processing checks is great. Even the cost of processing ACHs is somewhat up there. So great opportunity, wonderful thing that Sage is added into the Intacct application, and I would encourage everybody to at least take a look at it if you don't already have something that is enabling that for you. Now, if that something is Wells Fargo Payment Services, this is probably the last time you will see this, but as of July 14th, 2022, Wells Fargo Payment Services will go away and will no longer be usable inside the Intacct system. So if you are running Wells Fargo Payment Services, as it says in the third bullet point, we recommend you have another solution in place by release 2, which is May 13th. Okay. So again, reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you about vendor payment services by CSI. I think that it's a great, great addition to the payables functionality, and it shows where Intacct is headed. You know, they want to be a core financial system that gives you tremendous efficiencies, and this is a really big way to do that with the AP processing, scanning, etc., all the way down to making the payments for you. Unfortunately, if they would just pay the bills for you, that would be great too, but I don't think they're going to front the money to pay the bills for you. All right, if we were all in the same room together, I would ask for a show of hands, and I know people hate when you do that, but I'd still do it. I'd ask for a show of hands for how many people have turned on the GL outlier detection. And I would go around the room and I would just pop the hand for those who did not have their hand up. This is a free feature that you can enable inside of Sage Intacct, and it is a place where Sage continues to add functionality and to make strides in making this GL outlier detection something that will actually stop you from making a lot of the potential mistakes that you would make. We are all humans. We all make mistakes. Nothing wrong with that. It's just life. That's what happens. And this system will go a long way to trying to help you ascertain that, you know what, the last time you made an entry like this one, it had certain criteria. This one does not. Are you sure this entry is correct? Right? So GL outlier detection, you do need to have the journal entry approval process enabled. It evaluates debits and credits to catch outliers using machine learning. And don't worry, this is not the beginning of the Terminator series. We're not going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger jump out at you and tell you that he'll be back or anything like that. This is simply checking your accounting. It's going through the entries that you're making, and it's trying to get you to that level of a continuous close, so that you have tremendous confidence when you get to your month end that your numbers are right. And as soon as it finds any outliers of transactions, it calls them to your attention. And I want to go back right here, and I didn't point this out, but when you turn it on, you get this column, outlier. So it's really easy to see where issues might be before you approve your journal entries. Okay. Again, continuous close. It's helping you get to that point. How do you do it? You subscribe to the service. You go under company subscriptions, subscribe to the service. You click the box there. It's going to say, do you want to enable outlier detection? Enable data service, enable for general ledger approval. It's going to take a little bit to become ready. You'll get an email when it is ready, and then you can go in and turn it on and set the email address that you would like for the person to get the approvals. And then you've got the outlier assistant here that you can turn on per journal. Whoops. So you can turn this on per journal. So you can start small. Maybe you only want to do it for your general journal, right? Start small, watch it work, and then enable it in additional places, okay? So take a look at this when you get it. It does kind of go through how you can set these things up and how the outlier detection can be used. And again, some of the messages that come back, you can see those like here. There's now an outlier column in the audit adjustments journal or whatever journal you got it enabled for. You're able to see any kind of outliers, anything that might need to be checked. There's some adjustments made to reclassifying journal entries. For one thing, there's specific permission columns here now and all these different types of activities in the general journal. It does capture the history and the audit trail. Dates cannot be adjusted. Bottom line has to remain unchanged, and you can only reclass within an open period. So if you, for example, needed to change a department, if you, for example, needed to change, add more to the description, add an attachment to it, or something of that nature, those things that aren't going to affect the bottom line are available. In fact, items that can be reclassified are account or dimension value, memo, description, reference number, attachment, comments, and line amounts. However, total credits and debits must remain the same. So you put an entry in, you meant to break it out over two different departments, you didn't for whatever reason, you can go back into the system now and you can break that out over those two different departments because your total would remain the same, but you're breaking it out over those different departments. So some new features, some new functions in the reclassification concept in the general ledger. Dynamic allocations. This would be another place where I would love to just say, hey, you know what? Let me have a show of hands of how many people use dynamic allocations. I think personally that dynamic allocations has a lot of potential use that folks really just don't think about. In a lot of cases, it is more perceived to be a not-for-profit module where they're allocating grant costs or they're allocating expenses across certain programs or funds or things like that. But you can just as easily allocate G&A cost over revenue producing departments based on the revenue that's produced or anything along those lines. It's an extremely powerful module that has a lot of capabilities. And now you can actually allocate statistical accounts. So you can come into here and you can allocate statistical information. You can base, allocating over a number of units sold or something like that. We've got some new treatment here for the dimensional overrides where that's been opened up a little bit. But giving it some more power and some more things that it can do within the dynamic allocations module. And again, I think that's one module that has a lot of use that people really don't consider. It is an add-on cost, but it does have a tremendous amount of functionality as well too. So let's talk a little bit about purchasing. Most of the purchasing things that we're going to see do relate to one particular topic this time, and that is the inquiry for inventory items. So if you're in an inventory item, like we are here with the widget, we now have an inquiry tab here where you can look at both sales orders and purchase orders for that item. You can see, and actually in transit, if you have that enabled and you have any of those, you can see that as well too. But you can see in this case, we're looking at purchase orders and we have these purchase order transactions that are showing up in the system. And again, this is a filtered view, right? Just like any of the views that you have in Intacct. If you want to come in here and type in any specifics, you want to look at one warehouse, you want to look at one vendor, you want to set up some predefined filters and manage those filters, things like that. There's a tremendous amount of capability here to give you insight into the transactions for your inventory items. Also, from an inventory standpoint, we've modified the bin tabs, and you're able to get more information here. It's been renamed to tracking, and they've added the warehouse level field here for you to be able to see warehouse specific information as well. So if you're using inventory, if you're using purchasing inside of Sage Intacct, a couple of enhancements made there to make that process better for you. Training. Had a discussion with someone yesterday in regards to the training that's available in Sage Intacct, and she wholeheartedly agreed that it's some of the best training that you can get. It's some of the best help that you can get within the system. I've worked on a number of different systems in the past, and I definitely do agree with that. This is a reminder that you can now access the Learning Center inside of the Sage Intacct solution. So you can link your login to Sage Intacct to your Learning Center account, and then that way you're able to, within the Sage Intacct application, you're able to take advantage of, sorry about that, the ability inside of Sage Intacct to get to that Learning Center, to see all the classes that are available, and to quickly and easily take a class, join a lab, whatever your desire for homework might be. You're able to access that straight from within the Sage Intacct product. And just a reminder, that's been there for a little bit, but that's a reminder for that. Web services. So we don't really talk much about web services, right? But there is something to talk about in this case. So if you are a web services programmer, which I'll give a shout out to one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Mr. Ian D'Amelio. He'd be extremely embarrassed by this right now, but he is a programmer extraordinaire. Can run circles around the API, and I know he has looked for a few of these things in the past. So you can use credit card bank feeds for reconciliation via the API. Credit card bank feeds for reconciliation, so that's nice. You can create purchasing transaction definitions that support a linked workflow. And that is a big boon for the construction folks as the construction real estate module develops and is rolled out inside of Intacct. That's a big boon. Override calculated VAT. So if you're an international transaction or international company and you have to deal with those value-added taxes, it's now a lot easier to do that inside of the API. And you can also track the catalog of federal domestic assistance grant information. So if you are a nonprofit and you have dealings with the federal government, there is a chance that you need to work with the CFDA, and that is now available inside of the API. If you have any questions about it, there's a URL there. Again, this slide deck will be live when you get it, and you can click that, or feel free to reach out to us. Send an email to erpsupport@ddaaftech.com. It will be assigned to most likely to the wonderful Mr. D'Amelio, and he will have all the answers that you could possibly need on that subject. Accounts receivable, right? So a couple of improvements here. One I'm kind of giddy about, which is sad. I realize that. There are times which I need help, and that's probably one of those times. but one I'm giddy about and one I'm super excited about. So if we take a look, the giddy one, you can now import payments via a CSV template. Most payment methods are available via the template, so cash, printed checks, or record transfers, whatever how you want to pronounce that. Online ACH and online credit card are exceptions and not yet available, so you can't pick and use those types for the import template. Supported import transactions are one payment applied to multiple customer invoices. All payment methods except online credit cards and online ACH debits. You can interact with multi-currency payments, and payments with overpayment balances and attachments can be brought in. So this is wonderful. One payment applied to multiple customer invoices, everything except for these two, multi-currency, and then even overpayment balances and attachments. Template must include the unique invoice number or adjustment number. So this is something we haven't been able to do before, importing payments via CSV template. This is now available in Intacct. If you need to import a mass number of payments, let's say you've got a lot box or something of that nature, but it is not connectable to Intacct via a third-party module or anything like that, there may be some hope out there for you now. Importing payments via CSV template, matching them to those invoices is possible in the system. Can I delete the payments if the import needs adjusting? You can now import payments, but the system functionality around payments has not changed. So that does mean that if you import them in and you post them to an invoice and they get coded and marked and all of that into the system, it's not changing the business rules in Sage Intacct. It's merely giving you a methodology to mass import those payments into the system. So you still have to adhere to the normal business rules and payment functionality in Sage Intacct as to what can be deleted and what can be changed in regards to those payments. The end user is responsible to ensure the data is thoroughly reviewed prior to attempting the import. Just because you can't, this is something I think probably that my mother said to me a few times, maybe, and potentially my wife, and maybe some of my friends. So I guess I'm starting to see a pattern here. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. I could say that in my best mother or father voice. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. So this is here now, but it's slightly different because of the ability to delete or not to delete in the system. Bulk reversals are not available. So if this file is erroneous, then your system will be erroneous as well. And there may be a lot of cleanup behind it. Okay. So this is here, this is available. I do think it's fantastic. I do think it has a lot of applicability to it, but probably more so than a lot of other areas, you need to work out your process first. You need to have confidence in your numbers. You need to feel like this is a good spreadsheet, and because it's not easy to go backwards. For Intacct, the default sending contact can now be specifically stated. So the old way was that you simply set up an administrative contact in company information, and that's basically where things came from in accounts receivable. Now in accounts receivable, we have a contact settings. We can use a user profile, or we can custom enter all the information here. And when we go to send out things like statements or et cetera, we've got a lot more control over who they come from, what the information looks like, et cetera. So new feature, small thing, but I know I've heard a lot of customers, especially in regards to statements as they go out in the past, where they're looking for this and they want to be able to change this information, but I can't change or don't want to change the administrative contact. So gosh darn it, I'm stuck, right? Now you've got an ability to make that change and you are no longer, as one might say, stuck. Projects. From a nonprofit standpoint, of course, the project module is essentially the grant module for nonprofit organizations because those two things are very similar in the way they are tracked. And if you are a nonprofit and you're using projects, we now have an ability to enable some nonprofit grant specific fields. Things such as restriction details, uh, federal grant funder details, and whether or not you would like to utilize this particular project grant in reporting. So it's kind of hard to see here some of these, but if you enable that fields and configure projects and enable the grant fields, you'll then see in the additional info tab, you will see these additional fields where you can track that information. So if you're a nonprofit, you're tracking grants, tracking billing grants, anything like that, definitely something for you to take a look at in here and see if that won't enhance some of your usability. Financial reporting. This one is pretty small, but this one is pretty cool as well. I'm not quite giddy, a little bit more maybe than excited, somewhere in between. And I felt like, what, Elsa's sister or somewhere just then. In financial reports, you now have an ability to create a notation column, multiple notation columns if you wish. And you can make comments about certain areas within the financials. And then when you run the financials, you will get these notes in a separate column. So it's not quite notes at the bottom of the financials or notes on another page or something like that. But if you find yourself making explanations, exporting things out to Excel so that you can type into a column and put some information in here, this might be a really good function for you. And I can see applicability with this. You do come into the actual financial report here, and you do put the notations into the columns as you are editing the financial report. So it does have to be inside the report writer. But you now at least have that ability if you want to make those notations, and maybe that saves you from either having to export it to Excel or having to keep some Word document that goes along with your financials in order to be able to send them out. So a couple of advanced reporting components. So ICRW within reporting groups, you can now filter ICRW reports by date, location, and department within the reporting groups themselves. And the way that you do that is you add the prompts, memorize the report, set up the group to include 2 or more reports, and then run the group via the list view, and you will get those prompts. So you don't have to have multiple different configurations of a report in ICRW anymore. You really have an ability to create more structured generic reports, include the prompts, put them all together, and you'll still get prompted to get the specific information per report that you're looking for. So it's great not to have to include all of that in the system in each report. So here you can see run this report, and we've got some options up here at the top for as of date, location, group, and then department, and even group by choices there as well. Okay. And then we're looking here at the definitions. Here's how you add the prompt labels. into the system, and that's the as of date, the location ID, and the department ID. And then again, the report group information. Kind of hard to see this one, and I realize that, but as you're building the report group, I wish I could drag this little box down here, but you do have the ability here to stipulate the different reporting groups between the date, location, and departments, and put those into the group. So as you create them, when you run the report group, you will be prompted, and it will limit the information that comes through. So we have made some strides in reporting capabilities as well in contract renewals, specifically in the contract renewal forecasting area, to better analyze billings, revenue, and payments for upcoming renewals, what your projected revenues are, what your projected cash will be based off of that, and you can go in and leverage churn rates and those types of things to get even more detailed contract forecasting. So a lot of good features from a reporting standpoint added into the contracts module. We don't have a tremendous amount of contract customers. Certainly there's more people that use accounts payable and accounts receivable than some of the more specialized modules like contracts or projects or anything else. So these are big changes for the contract folks. If you have questions about how this works exactly, then please reach out to us and let us know, but not going to really devote a lot of time here for that specifically. So one of the last modules to take a look at is the advanced CRM integration. So we've got some new fields exposed in the field mapping. So you can see here in the screenshot there that we've added the fields to the opportunity or the opportunity product layout, and custom mapping and CRM configuration in Intacct for that revenue recognition and renewal templates. So those are some newly exposed fields. There's issues in here about breaking record links. If you're using the advanced integration, you know what that is. They've enhanced an ability here to report any broken links or anything like that, so that those things can be fixed faster. And then they've added some syncing into Intacct, or sync logs, I should say, into Intacct insofar as things that are happening in Salesforce. Okay. So the next thing that I want to talk to you about is something that I hinted in the very beginning, and it is the early adopter program. So this is a fairly new concept with Intacct. It is, you can think of it to be much like beta testing and different things like that, but it is an ability for end users of the software, end user organizations, to be able to request to be early adopters of significant new features and functionality. Now, it's not going to be something where I want to be an early adopter for the fact that you put 2 new fields on the payables screen, or you move this payables field over to here, but it will be for people who would like to take early advantage of any of these things. Multiple entities and a top level for your single entity companies. So early adopter feature for organizations to be able to more seamlessly move from single to multi-entity. You see the third one there, AP bill automation. We talked about that, right? That was the slide that I had shown earlier, with the ability to capture the emails, to scan the documents. If you're interested in that, let us know, and we will help you apply for the early adopter program. All of this is controlled by Intacct. We don't have any substantial say-so in it necessarily. We will advocate for anyone that wants to be a part of the program that has legitimate needs. But it is not something that we have total control over. So unfortunately, we can't wave a wand and say that you're in, but we will definitely try to help you. Cash management, streamline your reconciliation with creation rules. Anybody have any problems with their bank reconciliations and getting them done timely and quickly and all of that? Might be something to help you out with. Construction change management enhancements. If you're working with the construction real estate module, I know there's some good things that are going on there. And it could be something like the very last one, new list reports user experience. So new list user experience enhancements, bulk delete. That one has me just about giddy as well. Bulk delete. And it sounds like a very simple process, but that is one of those things where you would sit there and, gosh golly, I don't understand why it doesn't have this feature. If you want to enroll in the early adopter program, you get an early peek at the bulk delete capabilities. And if that's something that trips your trigger, you will have it. You'll also have potentially the hierarchy view. So you can see on the right-hand side, we are displaying a very, very in-depth list of vendors with lots of parent, child, grandchild, great-grandchild, and going all the way back maybe to Columbus here for how far back we're going in this family tree. So lots of availability here, or lots of possibilities here to see much more from a hierarchy standpoint. And over here, here's your column for your bulk delete and your delete button on the vendor screen. So trying to make it, and you'll notice here too, sorry, you'll notice here too that you can both send feedback on the beta that you're testing out, as well as if you decide this ain't for me, all you have to do is turn it off right there. So they do a great job within the early adopter program of allowing customers to manage it themselves, to be able to really participate in the program, but at the same time, if it is something that either isn't quite right for you, maybe isn't up to snuff for what you want yet, or you just don't have time at the moment, you can always temporarily turn it off. So if you have any desire, any thoughts about these early adopter features that are in the system, then I would highly encourage you to reach out to us and let us know that you have some desire for these. And again, these will be listed in the slide deck that you get. Okay. And with that, that takes us to the end of our program. I hope that it's been enjoyable for you. I hope that it's been insightful for you. I hope that you've gotten something out of it. And I'll pause right here. Julia, do we have any questions?
Not at this time, Philip.
All right. Well, I am going to take that to mean that I have done such a magnificent job explaining all of these new features and all of these new functions that I have answered every question that anyone on this call could possibly have. And I'm going to live with that. That's what I'm going to believe. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate you all coming here. Again, it is great to see such high numbers of both registration and attendance. I love it. I'm glad that we can do this for you guys. And please be on the lookout for our next release webinar. The next release is in May. Again, just as a reminder, it'll be about mid-May, and we'll definitely have a webinar at that time too to follow up on all the new features. In the meantime, here's my contact information. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you all.